Knight, and this is my opening proposition argument. Resolved. Sugary drinks should not be sold in primary and secondary schools. The staggering increases in childhood obesity have caused many people to wonder what circumstances have changed in the lives of children today compared to those of the past. It has been concluded that children who eat more empty calories and expend fewer calories through physical activity are more likely to become obese than other children. This conclusion is supported with a positive correlation between the television viewing of children and childhood obesity. Before I delve into the idea of what the main causes of obesity are, let us look first at what obesity actually is. Obesity, according to the National Institute of Health, is defined in terms of body mass index, or BMI. BMI is a person's weight in kilograms divided by the height in meters squared. For a person to be considered obese, he or she must have a BMI of at least 30 or more. From 1971 to 1974, the obesity rate among children in the United States was a mere 5%. However, from 1999 to 2002, the obesity rates tripled to 15%. So what is it that has changed over the past 40 years to have caused such a rise in childhood obesity? Starting from the early 1970s, the so-called nuclear family has been disappearing at an increasing rate. As statistics have shown, the amount of single mothers throughout the United States have increased into the early 2000s, and maternal employment has risen from 30% in 1975 to 55% in 2003. Children are no longer exposed to the same home-cooked meals as often as the previous generation and are forced to consume both school-made lunches and rely on pre-made meals for dinner. It appears the culprit to the increase in childhood obesity can be blamed on an increase in intake of fast food produced products and soda consumption. According to the Journal of the American Dietetic Association, the average consumption of soda increased 50% from 14 to 21 ounces, which occurred within the years of 1977 to 1998. So what was causing such a rise in soda consumption? First, spending for advertising soft drinks rose from $541 million in 1995 to $799 million in the early 2000s. Secondly, the runtime of commercials on children's programming increased by 11% from 1987 to 1993, half of which were for food and beverages. Thirdly, as the nuclear family disintegrated and there was less of a reliance on the importance of home-cooked meals, the share of soft drinks consumed at home decreased by 25%. But the intake of soft drinks at restaurants increased nearly 50% in the 1990s. Finally, the increase in consumption of soda by children led to an increase in the availability of soda at both primary and secondary schools. According to the findings made by the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, the access to vending machines, which contained soda, rose from 61% to 67% in middle schools and 88 to 96% in high schools from 1994 to 2000. These statistics, in turn, made it quite lucrative for soft drink companies to enter into pouring contracts, or contracts that constitute de facto endorsement by schools of corporate efforts to increase soft drink consumption among children and youth. In 2006, 73% of high schools, 58% of middle schools, and 42% of elementary schools had these pouring contracts. Aside from this, the spike in soft drink sales have led to schools using the increase in budget to focus on academic accountability. However, this inevitably led to a decrease in areas of study regarding nutrition and physical education. It appears that the most effective way in preventing an increase in the intake of sugary drinks within primary and secondary schools is to prevent an increase in pouring contracts being started by schools. There have been efforts to abandon these pouring contracts with the use of state legislation. Following the Commercial Free School Acts in 1999, the San Francisco Board of Education passed legislation that prohibited schools from entering into district-wide contracts with soft drinks or food companies. The Center for Commercial Free Education has reported that upwards of 30 school districts have refused contracts with soft drink companies. It appears that the most effective way in banning sugary drinks from primary and secondary schools is to pass further legislation, like the Commercial Free Schools Act, that makes the knowledge that sugary drinks contribute to childhood obesity more ubiquitous in an attempt to help decrease the amount of overweight children in our society.